I am Amanda, 33 years old, and I never thought my world would shatter over a birthday gift. My niece Emma turned 13 last month. I spent $850 on the latest smartphone she begged for. When she opened it, surrounded by 40 guests, she giggled and said, "Mom says if you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice." Everyone laughed. Everyone except me. I nodded, smiled, and later that night, with just 2 taps on my own phone, I shut down everything. Then I vanished. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from. Click subscribe if you have ever felt invisible to the people who should value you most. This story might just change how you see your own relationships. My sister Heather and I grew up in a modest home in Minnesota. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and parents who worked multiple jobs to keep us comfortable. Heather was always the charming one, 5 years younger with a knack for getting what she wanted. I was the responsible sister, the planner, the one who thought ahead. Our parents made sure we both knew the value of money and hard work, but somehow those lessons seemed to stick more with me. When I graduated college with my computer science degree, our parents beamed with pride. "This one is going places," Dad would tell anyone who would listen. Heather dropped out of community college in her first semester when she met Brian. 6 months later, they were married. 3 months after that, Emma was on the way. Our parents tried to hide their disappointment. "Different paths for different daughters," Mom would say diplomatically. They helped the young couple with the down payment on their first house, a starter home that needed work but had potential. I remember helping them move in, Heather already showing at 5 months, complaining about the outdated kitchen while Brian promised renovations that never materialized. 8 years ago, everything changed. Mom and Dad were driving back from visiting Heather, Brian, and 5-year-old Emma when a drunk driver crossed the median. They died on impact. The police said they didn't suffer, as if that somehow made it better. I was 31, established in my career at Nexus Technologies, with a comfortable condo and savings. Heather was 26, with a kindergartner and a husband who jumped between construction jobs. The inheritance was split equally between us. I invested mine. Heather and Brian bought a bigger house and 2 new cars. Within 18 months, they were calling me for loans. "Just until Brian's new job pays out," Heather would say. "Emma needs braces," she explained another time. "The roof is leaking," came next. I always said yes. They were family, and family takes care of family. That was what our parents had taught us. As Emma grew, so did my role as the generous aunt. Birthday gifts, Christmas presents, summer camp tuition, dance lessons, the good shoes for soccer, the private math tutor when she struggled in 4th grade. I loved my niece fiercely, saw so much potential in her bright eyes and quick mind. I wanted her to have every opportunity. Jasmine, my best friend since college, was the first to point out the pattern. "When was the last time they invited you over just to hang out?" she asked during one of our monthly wine nights. "Not to fix their Wi-Fi or drop off a check or pick up Emma for some activity you paid for?" I brushed her off. "They are busy. Emma has so many activities. Activities you fund." Jasmine reminded me. "Amanda, I love you, but they're using you." I didn't want to believe it. I remembered how Heather and I used to build blanket forts as kids, how she would crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. I remembered Dad saying, "You girls will always have each other, long after your mom and I are gone." So I kept saying yes to every request, kept showing up, kept hoping for some sign that I mattered beyond my wallet. The red flags were there. The time Emma called to thank me for her birthday gift, and I heard Heather in the background prompting her what to say. The Christmas dinner where Brian joked that I was their personal ATM and everyone laughed, including me, because what else could I do? The school events where Heather introduced me as Emma's aunt who works in computers, but never mentioned how I paid for the private school tuition. My dating life stalled years ago. After a few relationships fizzled because I prioritized emergency calls from Heather or last-minute babysitting for Emma, I stopped trying. My colleagues at Nexus knew me as reliable, brilliant with code, but distant. I declined happy hours to drive Emma to dance competitions. I used vacation days to help Heather when she had minor surgery. I existed on the periphery of my own life, centered instead around a family that increasingly took my presence for granted. Jasmine was my only consistent relationship. Every month, without fail, we would open a bottle of wine and catch up. She met men, fell in love, got engaged, while I showed her pictures of Emma's soccer trophies and dance recitals. "You deserve your own life," Jasmine would tell me. "You deserve someone who sees you." But I had convinced myself that family was enough, that the occasional "thanks sis" text from Heather or rare hug from Emma was worth the depletion of my savings and the emptiness of my apartment. I told myself that someday they would realize all I had done, all I had sacrificed. Someday they would see me. I was wrong. The day of Emma's 13th birthday started like any other. I woke up early, went for a 5-mile run, showered, and carefully wrapped the smartphone in silver paper with a holographic ribbon. The gift receipt was tucked into the card, though I knew she would love it. She had been dropping hints for months, showing me commercials, sending links to reviews. $850 was steep, but 13 was a milestone birthday. Besides, I had just received a bonus at work for completing a difficult project ahead of schedule. I drove to Heather and Brian's house, a spacious 4-bedroom in one of the best school districts. The house I helped them afford when they were underwater on their previous mortgage. The driveway was already full of cars. Heather had invited Emma's entire class plus family friends. 40 people in total, most of whom I barely knew. Inside, the decorations were elaborate. Streamers in Emma's favorite colors, professionally printed photos of her throughout the years, a dessert table that belonged in a magazine spread. I added my gift to the towering pile on the designated table. "Amanda." Heather spotted me and air kissed near my cheek. "You are just in time. The caterers just set up the taco bar." "Caterers?" I asked. Last week Heather had called to borrow $300 for birthday expenses. I had assumed it was for the cake. "Only the best for our girl," Heather winked. Brian's commission check was delayed again, but we could not cancel. "You understand." I nodded and moved toward the kitchen to grab a drink. Brian was there, pouring expensive tequila into a blender. "The money sister arrives," he boomed, his voice already slurred though it was barely noon. "Margarita." "Just water for now," I said. "I am driving." "Always responsible," he smirked. "That is why you have the big bucks and we have the big fun, right?" Before I could respond, the doorbell rang and more guests arrived. Children filled the backyard, shrieking with laughter as they played some game involving water balloons. I sat on a lounge chair watching from a distance as always. One of Heather's friends, Tiffany, sat beside me. "So nice what you do for them," she said, nodding toward Heather who was arranging gift bags for the guests. "Heather tells us all the time how they would be lost without you." Something in her tone made me uncomfortable. "They are family," I said simply. Tiffany smiled. "Of course. Though my sister and I could never have that arrangement. Too much pride, you know? I could never just take like that. But Heather always says you don't mind. That you have nobody else to spend your money on anyway." My cheeks burned. Is that what Heather told people? That I funded their lifestyle because I had no life of my own? Before I could think of a response, Emma spotted me from across the yard. "Aunt Amanda," she called, running over. "You came." "Of course I came," I said, standing to hug her. "I would never miss your birthday." Emma was nearly as tall as me now, caught in that awkward stage between child and teenager. Her braces, which I had paid for, flashed as she smiled. "Did you bring me something good?" she asked, eyes darting to the gift table. "Emma," I said with a gentle warning tone. "Is that how we greet people?" She rolled her eyes, the gesture so similar to Heather's that it startled me. "Sorry. Thank you for coming to my party, Aunt Amanda," she recited, as if reading from a script. I am so glad you are here. The sincerity was missing, but I chose to ignore it. That is better. And you will find out what I brought when you open your gifts. 2 hours later, after cake and ice cream, Emma sat in the center of the living room, surrounded by torn wrapping paper. She had received new clothes, gift cards, jewelry, and art supplies. She opened each gift with increasing speed, barely glancing at the cards. When she reached for the silver package, I sat up straighter. That one is from Aunt Amanda, Heather announced, a knowing smile on her face. She clearly knew what was inside. Emma tore through the paper and squealed when she saw the box. The new Phone X Pro. Oh my God. She jumped up and down. It is the 500-gigabyte model too. The room filled with impressed murmurs. Parents exchanged glances, probably calculating the cost. Emma turned the box over in her hands, admiring it from all angles. Then, still giggling, she looked up at her mother. Mom, remember what you said yesterday? About Aunt Amanda? A flash of something, panic maybe, crossed Heather's face. Emma, not now, sweetie. But Emma, high on sugar and attention, continued. Mom says if you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice, she announced to the room, still giggling. But I would notice because who would buy me phones? 40 people laughed. The sound washed over me like ice water. I felt my smile freeze on my face as Emma continued to examine her new phone, already forgetting I was there. Across the room, Heather avoided my eyes, pretending to gather wrapping paper. In that moment, everything crystallized. The years of one-way giving. The absence of genuine connection. The calculations behind every interaction. I was not family. I was an ATM with a pulse. Good one, Emma. Someone called out. More laughter. I stood up, mumbled something about needing the restroom, and walked out of the room. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Jasmine. How is the party? Did she like the phone? I could not bring myself to respond. Instead, I splashed water on my face in the bathroom and returned to the party, a plastic smile firmly in place. For the next hour, I moved through the crowd like a ghost, catching snippets of conversation. Amanda is loaded, no kids, no husband. What else is she going to spend it on? Heather says she is just happy to be included. Brian says they will be set once Amanda's company goes public. They are already planning a pool. Each comment was another crack in my heart. As guests began to leave, I made my excuses. Work emergency. Had to go. Emma barely looked up from her new phone to say goodbye. Heather hugged me, whispered, "Thank you for everything, sis," and then immediately turned to another guest. In my car, I finally let the tears come. I called Jasmine, who answered on the first ring. What happened? She asked, knowing me well enough to hear the pain in my voice. You were right, I said. You have been right for years. Oh, Amanda, she sighed. I am so sorry. Mom says if you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice. I repeated Emma's words. That is what my niece said while opening the $850 phone I bought her. And everyone laughed, Jasmine. Everyone. Come over, she said immediately. We will open wine and figure this out. No, I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. I need to think. I need to be alone. As I drove home, my mind raced with memories, each one reframing itself in this new, harsh light. Every check written. Every emergency solved. Every milestone funded. All while being discussed behind my back as the pathetic, lonely sister who bought her way into family inclusion. I have been trying to tell you for years, Jasmine had said so many times. I should have listened sooner. I did not sleep that night. How could I? I sat at my kitchen table until 3 in the morning, scrolling through years of text messages between Heather and me. A pattern emerged so clearly that I wondered how I had missed it. Every contact initiated with a need. Money for car repairs. Money for Emma's school trips. Money for home improvements. Occasional thank yous, always followed quickly by new requests. I pulled up my bank statements, calculating roughly how much I had given them over the years since our parents died. The number made me feel physically ill. Over $200,000 in loans that were never repaid. Another $50,000 in gifts, tuition payments, and experiences for Emma. $250,000. Enough for a house of my own instead of my rented condo. Enough for extended travel. Enough to change my life in countless ways. Then I checked my credit card statements. 3 months ago, I had added Heather as an authorized user on one of my cards for emergencies only. The recent charges included salon visits, expensive restaurants, clothing stores, and even a weekend spa trip I knew nothing about. Nearly $6,000 in discretionary spending they had hidden from me. As dawn broke, I made coffee and opened my laptop. I found myself searching phrases like toxic family relationships and financial abuse by siblings. Each article I read felt like it was written about my life. The sense of obligation. The one-sided giving. The guilt trips. The slow erosion of boundaries until nothing remained. I called in sick to work for the first time in years. Then I did something I had never done before. I drove to Heather's house unannounced, using the spare key they had given me for emergencies to let myself in when no one answered the door. They were probably sleeping off the party. In Heather's home office, I found a folder labeled Amanda. Inside were copies of my parents' will, life insurance policies, and detailed notes about my salary, promotion schedule, and company stock options. A printed email exchange between Heather and Brian discussed how to approach me about investing in a vacation property they wanted. She never uses her vacation time anyway, Heather had written. We might as well get a lake house out of it. My hands trembled as I took photos of the documents with my phone. In the kitchen, I found a notepad with Heather's handwriting, Amanda birthday gift ideas for Emma. The list included the exact model of phone I had purchased, along with notes like emphasize how all her friends have one and mention how educational apps would help her grades. They had been manipulating me for years, strategizing how to extract maximum financial benefit from my love for them. And I had fallen for it every time. I left the house as quietly as I had entered, then sat in my car for nearly an hour, trying to breathe through the panic and betrayal crushing my chest. My phone buzzed with a text from Heather. Emma broke her new phone case already. Can you order the pink one she wants? Link below. Thanks, sis. Something inside me snapped. Not with rage, but with clarity. I knew what I needed to do. First, I called my company's HR department and inquired about remote work possibilities. As a senior developer, I had leverage. They had been trying to keep me happy since a competitor tried to poach me last year. To my surprise, they were immediately receptive. We can arrange something temporary while we formalize a remote work policy, my manager said. Your project is ahead of schedule anyway. Take a few weeks, work from wherever you need to be. We will sort out the details. Next, I called my bank and credit card companies. I closed the card Heather had access to. I removed her as a beneficiary on my accounts. I canceled the automatic transfers I had set up for Emma's tuition and extracurricular activities. With each call, each signature on digital forms, I felt a weight lifting. By mid-afternoon, I had reclaimed my financial autonomy. No more open access to my money. No more automatic yes to every request. But it wasn't enough. The thought of confronting them, of trying to establish boundaries after years of having none, exhausted me. They would cry, make promises, remind me of our parents, use Emma as emotional leverage. And eventually, I would give in again. The cycle would continue. I needed a clean break. A complete disappearance from their lives. Let them see what it really meant for me to vanish, as Heather had so casually suggested I could. I researched how to disappear effectively. Temporary mail forwarding. Cash withdrawals instead of card transactions. Prepaid phones. Rental agreements that didn't require extensive background checks. I had the advantage of working in technology. I knew how digital footprints worked and how to minimize mine. That evening, I began packing, separating necessities from possessions I could replace. Clothes, important documents, irreplaceable mementos from my parents. Everything else could stay. I wrote a letter, taking hours to find the right words. Not angry, not accusatory, but clear and firm about why I was leaving and what I had discovered. I included printouts of the credit card statements showing Heather's unauthorized spending, photos of the manipulation notes I had found, and a complete accounting of the money I had provided over the years. I have been a resource to you, not a sister, I wrote. Emma's words at her party were not a child's mistake, but a reflection of how you truly see me. I deserve more than this. I deserve to be valued for who I am, not what I can provide. I placed the letter in a black backpack, along with the financial records. Then I added one final item, a photo album I had created years ago. Pictures of us as children. Photos of our parents. Images of Emma growing up. On the last page, I placed a picture of us all together at Christmas 2 years ago. We were smiling. I had thought we were happy. I wrote beneath it, I thought this was real. I thought I mattered. As midnight approached, I looked around my condo one last time. 8 years of my life spent prioritizing everyone but myself. 8 years of diminishing my own needs and dreams to fund theirs. No more. With 2 taps on my banking app, I shut down every automatic payment that had been supporting Heather's family. Credit card payments, utility bills, subscription services, tuition installments. All gone. Then I picked up the black backpack and walked out the door. The night air felt different somehow. Cooler, cleaner, filled with possibility rather than obligation. I placed my essential belongings in the trunk of my car, the black backpack sitting on the passenger seat beside me. My hands should have been shaking, but they were steady as I started the engine. This felt right. Necessary. First stop, an ATM where I withdrew the maximum daily limit in cash. I would do the same at different machines over the next few days until I had enough liquid funds to sustain me during the transition. Credit cards leave trails, and I needed to minimize those for a while. Next, I drove to a 24-hour big box store and purchased a prepaid phone. My regular phone would stay on for now, collecting the panicked messages that would inevitably come once they realized what had happened, but I would not be checking it. The new phone would be for Jasmine only, my one connection to my old life. I checked into a hotel on the outskirts of the city, paying cash and using my real ID since this was just a temporary stop. Tomorrow I would begin the journey to my actual destination, a city 3 states away where I had interviewed remotely for an apartment earlier that day. The landlord was a friend of a colleague, willing to skip some of the formal procedures in exchange for 3 months' rent paid up front in cash. In the quiet of the hotel room, I fired up my laptop one last time to check that my digital affairs were in order. Email forwarding set up. Social media accounts temporarily deactivated. LinkedIn showing my new remote work status without specifying a location. I sent a carefully worded email to my manager with my new contact information, emphasizing the confidentiality of my situation due to personal safety concerns. It wasn't entirely a lie. My emotional safety was certainly at risk. I slept surprisingly well that night. No dreams, no tossing and turning. Just peaceful darkness. At dawn, I showered and prepared for the final step before leaving town. I drove to Heather's neighborhood, parking a block away from her house. The street was quiet, most families still asleep on a Saturday morning. The weight of the black backpack felt significant as I walked the familiar route to their front door. I had been in this house countless times. Had helped choose the paint colors, had assembled furniture, had filled their refrigerator during tough times. Now I stood on the porch as a stranger, an apparition about to vanish from their lives. I placed the backpack carefully against the front door, positioned so it would be impossible to miss. Inside was everything they needed to understand why I was leaving. The financial records, the letter, the photo album, my truth. For a moment, I hesitated. Through the window, I could see Emma's school backpack thrown carelessly on the couch. A jacket of Heather's draped over a chair. evidence of the family I had poured so much into. A family that had seen me as nothing more than a convenient resource. "Goodbye," I whispered, then turned and walked away without looking back. The drive out of town felt surreal. Streets and buildings I had known for years scrolled past my windows for the last time. I stopped only once, at a different hotel 20 miles from my condo, to sleep for a few hours before continuing my journey the next day. My new phone buzzed. A text from Jasmine, the only person I had trusted with my new number. "Did you do it?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. "Left the backpack. Heading out of state tomorrow. They will find it when they wake up. How do you feel?" I considered the question carefully. Empty. Relieved. Scared. Free. All of it. "I am proud of you," she wrote back. "Keep me updated. Love you." Love. Such a simple word. I had thrown it around so carelessly with Heather and Emma, saying it at the end of phone calls, signing it on birthday cards. All while they had been calculating how to best extract value from me. That wasn't love. It was exploitation. Real love, I was learning, looked more like Jasmine's unwavering support. Her willingness to tell me hard truths. Her respect for my boundaries and decisions. I checked out of the hotel before sunrise the next morning and began the long drive to my new home. 12 hours on highways and back roads, stopping only for gas and food. With each mile marker, I felt the distance growing not just physically but emotionally. The cord that had bound me to Heather's family, stretched thin for so many years, was finally breaking. By nightfall, I arrived in my new city. Anonymous, unknown, a blank slate. The apartment was small but clean, in a secure building with covered parking. The landlord met me with keys and minimal paperwork, true to his word about discretion. Cash smoothed the process considerably. As I carried my belongings up to the third-floor unit, I realized this was the first place I had lived that was truly just for me. Not chosen with consideration for its proximity to Heather's family. Not maintained as a way station between visits to their house. Mine. I plugged in my new laptop, connected to the Wi-Fi I had arranged to have activated before my arrival, and sent a brief message to my manager that I was settled and would resume work the next day. Then I sent Jasmine my new address with a promise to call soon. The apartment was sparsely furnished, just the basics the landlord had provided. A bed, a couch, a small dining table with 2 chairs. In time I would make it my own, but for now, the emptiness felt appropriate. A canvas waiting for the life I had not allowed myself to create. I wondered when they would find the backpack. When they would realize what it meant. When the panic would set in as they discovered all the financial support suddenly cut off. Part of me felt guilty, but a stronger part felt justified. They had taken me for granted for the last time. I fell asleep that night to the unfamiliar sounds of my new building. Different plumbing noises, different neighbor footsteps, different street sounds floating through the window. Different, but somehow right. The first step of my disappearing act was complete. I had vanished from their lives as thoroughly as if I had never existed. Now came the harder part, creating a life built around my own needs and dreams instead of someone else's. 1 week into my new life, the messages on my old phone had reached a fever pitch. I checked them just once, from my laptop using a remote access app that wouldn't reveal my location. 67 missed calls from Heather. 39 from Brian. 24 voicemails, escalating in panic and anger. The first text messages were casual, unaware of what had happened. "Thanks for the amazing gift for Emma. Call me this week, we should do lunch." Then, confusion. "Amanda? Are you getting my texts?" Emma's tuition payment bounced. Followed by realization. "We found the backpack. Please call me immediately." And finally, desperation. The mortgage company called. "The electric bill is past due. Everything is falling apart. Please, Amanda, we can fix this. We need you. Family doesn't do this to family." I closed the app without responding. Family doesn't do what I did? What about what they had done to me for years? Jasmine kept me updated on what she could see from her vantage point. According to her, Heather had been telling everyone that I was having a mental breakdown and would come to my senses soon. She was frantically borrowing money from friends to cover immediate expenses. Emma had posted a tearful video on social media about her aunt abandoning her. It should have broken my heart. Instead, I felt a strange detachment, as if watching a movie about someone else's life. The emotional manipulation that had worked so effectively for years now bounced off the shield of physical and psychological distance I had created. My new routine was taking shape. I worked remotely during the day, taking advantage of my company's flexible hours to explore my new city in the late afternoons. I found a coffee shop I liked, a park with a walking trail, a used bookstore with a friendly cat. Small pleasures I had denied myself while constantly on call for Heather's emergencies. The apartment was slowly becoming home. I bought dishes I loved instead of the practical, boring set I had owned for years. I splurged on art for the walls, plants for the windowsills. Without the constant drain of supporting another household, my salary stretched comfortably. 2 weeks in, Jasmine called with news. Heather had to pull Emma out of private school, she said. She is telling everyone it is because the teachers weren't good, but we all know the truth. How is Emma taking it? I asked, surprised to find I still cared. From her social media, not well. Lots of angry posts about how unfair life is. A few about missing you, though. That stung. Emma was a child, after all. A child who had been taught by her parents that I was a resource, not a person with feelings. She was as much a victim of Heather and Brian's entitlement as I was. Heather tried to use your emergency contact info to get your new address from your company, Jasmine continued. Your manager shut that down fast. Said employee information is confidential. I made a mental note to send my manager a thank you gift. His protection of my privacy was going above and beyond. 3 weeks in, I received an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line, we found what was in the backpack. I almost deleted it, assuming it was Heather using a new email to bypass my filters. But curiosity won out. I opened it to find it was from Tiffany, Heather's friend who had sat with me at the birthday party. I was there when Heather opened your backpack, she wrote. I saw the evidence. The credit card statements. The notes she had been keeping about how to get money from you. I had no idea how calculated it all was. I thought you were just a generous sister. We all did. But that photo album at the bottom, when I saw her reaction to the last page, I knew you were right to leave. She wasn't sad about losing you. She was panicked about losing your financial support. I am so sorry, Amanda. You deserved better. The email ended with her contact information and an offer to let me know if anything significant happened with Heather's family that I should be aware of. An unexpected ally. I forwarded the email to Jasmine, who responded immediately. See? Others are starting to see through Heather's act too. The story she is telling about your breakdown isn't holding up now that people know what was in that backpack. Month 1 in my new city came and went. I joined a yoga studio. I tried restaurants alone and found I enjoyed my own company. I participated in my first team video call from my new home office, and no one questioned where I was or why I had moved. Work continued seamlessly. Heather found my email eventually, sending messages that alternated between rage and pleading. How could you abandon your family? We are drowning without you. Mom and Dad would be ashamed. That last one nearly broke my resolve. Would my parents be ashamed of me for walking away? Or would they be ashamed of Heather for taking such advantage of her sister? I would never know. What I did know was that I was sleeping better than I had in years. The constant anxiety about the next emergency call, the next financial request, had lifted. In its place was a growing sense of possibility. What did I want from life, now that I was living it for myself? The answer came in unexpected ways. I signed up for a cooking class. I joined a book club. I made a tentative new friend in my apartment building, a graphic designer named Zoe, who invited me for coffee. Small steps toward a life built around joy rather than obligation. 3 months into my new life, Tiffany emailed again. Heather and Brian are selling the house. They cannot afford it without your help. Emma is devastated about leaving her friends, changing schools again. She blames her parents now, not you. I overheard her telling a friend that her mom and dad had been using Aunt Amanda like an ATM, and now they were facing the consequences. Emma was learning a hard lesson about actions and consequences. Part of me wished I could shield her from it, but another part recognized that this might be the most valuable education she could receive. Better to learn now at 13 than at 33 like I had. The email continued. The extended family is finally seeing the truth. Your cousin Sarah found old Facebook messages where Heather had been bad-mouthing you for years while taking your money. People are disgusted. Heather is losing friends. She cried to me yesterday about how nobody understands how hard this is for her, and I just couldn't sympathize. She made this bed. The family dynamics I had never questioned were shifting in my absence. The story Heather had controlled for so long was unraveling as more evidence of her manipulation came to light. I had thought disappearing would be the end of the story. Instead, it was revealing truths that had been buried under years of guilt and obligation. 5 months in, I received my first direct message from Emma. She had found my professional email through my company website. I miss you, she wrote simply. I am sorry for what I said at my birthday. Mom told me to say it. I did not know what it meant. I know now. I am sorry. I read the message a dozen times, tears finally coming after months of emotional numbness. The hurt was still there, but the anger had softened. Emma was a child who had been taught terrible lessons by her parents. Perhaps there was hope for her to learn better ones. I did not respond immediately. I needed time to consider whether contact with Emma was healthy for either of us. Instead, I forwarded the message to the therapist I had started seeing, asking for guidance on how to proceed. Take your time, my therapist advised. There is no rush to respond. Your healing comes first. My healing, such a simple concept that I had never prioritized before. For the first time in my adult life, I was putting my own oxygen mask on first, as the airplane's safety demonstrations always advised. And I was breathing easier than I ever had. 6 months after my disappearance, I barely recognized my own life. My apartment felt truly mine now, decorated with intentional choices rather than the haphazard accumulation of years. I had joined a hiking group that explored local trails every weekend. I was dating casually, nothing serious, but enjoying the process of meeting new people without the constant interruptions of family emergencies. Work had noticed the change in me too. You seem more focused, my manager commented during our monthly review. More creative. Your last code solution was brilliant. Without the mental and emotional drain of supporting Heather's family, I had more energy for everything else. My career was flourishing. I received a promotion and a raise, ironically making more money now that I was spending less of it on others. Jasmine came to visit, her first time seeing my new home. She walked through the apartment, noting all the details that reflected the new me. You have plants, she said, surprised. You always said you killed plants. I never had time to care for them properly before, I explained. Too busy caring for everyone else. We opened wine, sitting on my balcony overlooking the city lights. For the first time, I asked for details about Heather and her family. They downsized dramatically, Jasmine said. Apartment in a different school district. Brian finally got steady work because he had to. Heather took a job as a receptionist. They are learning to live within their means. And Emma. Jasmine smiled. That kid is resilient. Struggling with the changes, but adapting. Her social posts are less angry now, more reflective. She mentions you sometimes, always positively. I nodded, relieved. I have been drafting a response to her email. My therapist is helping me set appropriate boundaries. You are seeing a therapist? Jasmine raised her eyebrows. The Amanda I knew would never have made time for that. The Amanda you knew was too busy paying for everyone else's needs to invest in her own mental health, I said without bitterness. This Amanda is different. Later that night, after Jasmine had gone to sleep in my guest room, I finally sent Emma a reply. Not to her direct message, which felt too intimate, but to her school email address, which Tiffany had provided. Emma, I wrote, thank you for your apology. I believe you did not understand the weight of those words at your party. I am not ready for direct contact yet, but I want you to know that I still care about you. What happened between me and your parents is complex, adult business that is not your fault. I hope you are doing well in your new school. Keep working hard. Your future is bright and full of possibilities. I signed it simply Amanda, not Aunt Amanda, or Love, Amanda. Small boundaries, but important ones. The next morning, Jasmine and I visited my therapist together. I had arranged a joint session to help process the complicated emotions surrounding my family estrangement. Disappearing was the most drastic option, my therapist acknowledged. But sometimes a clean break is necessary for healing to begin. The question now is, what kind of relationship, if any, do you want with your family moving forward? It was a question I had been considering for months. The anger had subsided, replaced by a more nuanced understanding of the dynamics at play. Heather and I had both been shaped by our upbringing, by the loss of our parents, by the roles we had fallen into. Her behavior was inexcusable but not incomprehensible. I do not think I can ever have a close relationship with Heather again, I said slowly. The trust is too broken. But Emma, she deserves a chance to become someone different than her parents are raising her to be. Jasmine nodded encouragingly. You could be the example she needs. Show her another way to be. My therapist cautioned patience. Any reconnection needs to happen slowly, with clear boundaries from the beginning. And only when you truly feel ready. Ready. Was I ready to let any of them back into my carefully reconstructed life? The question lingered as Jasmine returned home and I settled back into my routine. A week later, I received an email from Heather. Unlike her previous messages, this one was not angry or manipulative. It was short, almost formal. I found your letter in the backpack again yesterday while packing for our move, she wrote. I have read it so many times I know parts by heart. I did not want to believe it at first, but I cannot deny the evidence you left. What we did to you is wrong. I do not expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand now why you left. No request to come back. No plea for money. Just acknowledgement. It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was more self-awareness than Heather had ever shown before. I forwarded it to my therapist with the question, progress or manipulation? Only time will tell, came the wise reply. Actions speak louder than words. 8 months after my disappearance, I felt settled enough in my new life to consider a small opening. I sent Heather a brief email with a secure email address they could use to contact me. No phone number, no address, just a limited communication channel I could close if necessary. I am not ready for regular contact, I wrote, but I am willing to receive updates about Emma occasionally. The response came within minutes. A simple thank you followed by a recent school photo of Emma. She looked older somehow, more serious. Growing up fast in the face of family upheaval. 9 months in, I received my first letter from Emma directly, forwarded by Tiffany, who had become an unexpected bridge between my old life and new. Dear Aunt Amanda, she wrote in careful handwriting. Mom says I can write to you but not to ask for anything. I just want to tell you about school. I am getting good grades in math now. I have a new best friend named Lily. We live in a smaller place, but I have my own room. Dad is working a lot. Mom too. Things are different now. She had drawn a small heart at the bottom of the page. No manipulation, no guilt, just a niece reaching out to her aunt. I wrote back a short letter about my new city, asking about her classes, keeping it light and appropriate. A small thread of connection, carefully maintained. 10 months after I left, Jasmine called with surprising news. Heather joined a support group, she said, for people with unhealthy relationships to money and family. She is actually doing the work, Amanda. Going every week, talking about how she treated you, trying to understand why. I sat with that information, uncertain how to feel. Part of me was skeptical, expecting this to be another manipulation tactic. But another part, a growing part, hoped it was genuine. Not for the possibility of reconciliation, but for Heather's own sake. For Emma's sake. Good for her, I finally said. Everyone deserves the chance to grow. Including me. Especially me. The woman who had disappeared in the night was not the same woman who now stood firmly in her own life, making choices based on self-respect rather than guilt, building connections rooted in mutuality rather than obligation. 11 months in, I received an invitation to Emma's 14th birthday. Not a demand for attendance or gifts, just a simple card with the details and a note. I would like to see you, but I understand if you cannot come. I discussed it extensively with my therapist. Was I ready for such a significant step? What boundaries would I need in place? How would I handle seeing Heather and Brian again? In the end, I decided not to attend in person. Instead, I sent a thoughtful card with a bookstore gift certificate. Modest, but meaningful. A tentative step. Emma sent a thank you note, handwritten and sincere. No mention of wishing I had sent something more expensive. Progress. As the 1-year anniversary of my disappearance approached, I found myself reflecting on all that had changed. I had built a life centered around my own well-being. I had learned to recognize manipulation and stand firm against it. I had discovered my own strength in walking away from people who had treated me as a resource rather than a person. And in that strength, I had found the capacity for compassion without self-sacrifice, understanding without enabling, love with limits. The woman who had disappeared, leaving nothing but a black backpack filled with painful truths, had transformed completely. In losing a toxic family dynamic, I had found myself. 1 year to the day after I left the black backpack on Heather's doorstep, I sat on my balcony watching the sunrise over my new city. The morning was quiet, peaceful, mine in a way no morning had been before my disappearance. My phone chimed with a text from Jasmine, thinking of you today. 1 year of freedom. Proud of you. Freedom. That was exactly what it felt like. Not the absence of family, but the presence of choice. The ability to decide for myself how to spend my time, my money, my emotional energy. The right to set boundaries and have them respected. Later that morning, I checked my secure email account and found a message from Heather. I had been expecting something, knowing she would remember the significance of the date. 1 year ago today, you taught us the hardest lesson of our lives, she wrote. We did not see your value as a sister, as a person. We saw what you could give us, not who you were. It took losing you completely to understand how wrong that was. She continued, describing the changes their family had undergone. Brian working steadily at a construction company, now a supervisor. Heather taking classes toward an accounting degree. Emma thriving in public school, more grounded and appreciative than before. We do not expect you to come back into our lives, the email concluded. We have not earned that. But I wanted you to know that your leaving changed us for the better, even though it hurt terribly. You deserved so much more than what we gave you. Attached was a formal letter, signed by both Heather and Brian, acknowledging the total amount they had taken from me over the years and a modest payment plan to begin repaying it. Not as an attempt to buy their way back into my life, the letter specified, but as a matter of integrity. I forwarded it to my financial advisor with a note to set up a college fund for Emma with any payments they actually made. I had no expectation they would follow through completely, but the gesture itself was meaningful. That afternoon, I received the most unexpected email of all. From Emma's school account, a heartfelt message that brought tears to my eyes. Dear Aunt Amanda, she wrote, Mom does not know I am writing this. Today is 1 year since you left. I found your photo album in Mom's closet last week. The one you left in the backpack. I looked at all the pictures of us when I was little. You were always there for my birthdays and school plays and everything important. I never said thank you enough." She continued, "Mom and Dad talk differently about money now. Dad says we live within our means, whatever that means. Mom cries sometimes looking at old pictures of you two when you were kids. She misses you, not your money. I know she was wrong before. I was wrong too." The email ended simply, "I am sorry for what I said at my birthday last year. I hope someday you can forgive me. I love you." I sat with those words for a long time. Forgiveness. Such a complex concept. It did not mean forgetting or allowing the same patterns to continue. It meant releasing the grip of anger and resentment for my own sake, not theirs. I had already begun that process, focusing on building my new life rather than dwelling on the hurts of the past. But reading Emma's words, I felt the last hard knot of pain in my chest begin to loosen. That evening, Jasmine and 3 new friends from my hiking group came over for dinner. As we shared a meal I had cooked myself, laughing and trading stories, I realized how much richer my life had become since I walked away from people who could not see my worth. To transformations I toasted, raising my glass. Later, alone again, I composed a reply to Emma. "Dear Emma," I wrote, "thank you for your message. 1 year ago, I made the hardest decision of my life. I did not leave to hurt you or your parents, but to save myself." Sometimes in life, we have to make difficult choices to protect our own well-being. I continued, "The words you said at your birthday hurt deeply, but I understand now that you were repeating what you had heard, not expressing your own thoughts. We all make mistakes. We all have the capacity to learn and grow from them." I described my new life in broad strokes, my work, my friends, my hobbies. Not to make her envious, but to show her that there was value in building a life based on genuine connections and personal growth rather than material acquisitions. "I am not ready to see your family in person," I concluded honestly. "That may change with time, or it may not. But I want you to know that I am proud of how you have handled this difficult year. The fact that you can recognize past mistakes and apologize for them shows maturity beyond your years. Keep growing, keep learning, and always remember that your worth as a person has nothing to do with what you can give others materially. True love never comes with a price tag." I signed it with care, Aunt Amanda, a small but significant shift from my previous correspondence. As I prepared for bed that night, I reflected on the profound lesson of the past year. We teach people how to treat us by what we allow, what we reinforce, what we accept. For years, I had taught my sister's family that I was a resource to be tapped, not a person to be respected and loved. By disappearing, I had forced a reset of those expectations. The pain of that process had been necessary, like setting a broken bone so it could heal properly. Now, a year later, the healing was well underway for all of us. I did not know what the future held for my relationship with Heather's family. Perhaps we would slowly rebuild something new, something healthier, based on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. Perhaps we would remain distant, connected only through occasional correspondence. Either way, I was at peace with my decision to prioritize my own well-being after a lifetime of putting others first. The woman who had nodded and smiled through her niece's hurtful comment at a birthday party no longer existed. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, and infinitely more whole. Sometimes you have to disappear completely before others can truly see you. And sometimes, in that disappearance, you finally find yourself. Have you ever had to walk away from a relationship that was hurting you more than helping you? How did you find the courage to prioritize your own well-being? Share your stories in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to set boundaries, even with family. Thank you for joining me on this journey of healing and self-discovery. Remember, your worth is not measured by what you give others, but by how truly you live your own life.